In November 1995, the Beatles gave their fans an early Christmas present with the airing of the Free as a Bird video, trailering both the first episode of the Anthology TV series and the release of Anthology 1. However, the video was also an even earlier Easter present, laced as it was with an almost endless number of Easter eggs depicting the Beatles' history and almost all of their songbook. There were also a few red herrings along the way, so think of it as a visual equivalent of Glass Onion. Joe Pytka, an acclaimed US commercials director who had also worked on some of Michael Jackson's promos, was enlisted to helm the video. At their first meeting, Paul outlined his own concept, which consisted of a flip book with old photos of the Beatles. The next meeting was at Abbey Road, with Paul joined this time by George Harrison, George Martin, Neil Aspinall and Derek Taylor. Pytka recalls George Harrison referring to the project as free as a turd. At a separate meeting between Pytka and Aspinall, both agreed that Paul's idea didn't really work. It was then that Pytka pitched the idea of having a sparrow flying through the Beatles' history. Neil Aspinall liked the idea very much, but with one caveat: he could never get all of the Beatles to agree on the actual bird. Rather fittingly, the video starts off with a bird swooping inside Gambier Terrace, the student home of John and Stuart Sutcliffe, where they had both announced that the band name was to change from the Quarrymen to the Beatles. The bird then flies over the Royal Liver buildings on the banks of the Mersey before settling on a crowd of Liverpool dockers. The actual location was Stanley Dock, where John's Irish ancestors had originally lived. The bird's flight continues to take in a mock-up of the exterior of the Cavern Club, then Strawberry Field and Penny Lane, the shops dressed in a 1950s period. The interior of Liverpool's Adelphi Hotel appears, the host of the annual International Beatle Week, which has been a pilgrimage for many Beatles fans since 1977. London locations are restricted to Savile Row and the Abbey Road crossing. There are far too many Easter eggs to mention every one in this short video. For example, in just one short scene, we can see a newspaper taxi from Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Chairman Mao from Revolution, the magical Mystery Tour bus, Max the Blue Meanie, and a waltzing John and Yoko, referencing the ballad of John and Yoko. More oblique references could be the girl boarding the taxi, maybe referencing She's Leaving Home, and as for John and Yoko dancing in the street, that could be referencing Two of Us, or even Why Don't We Do It in the Road. The props and imagery also included a walrus, a blue jay, a barber's shop, a bulldog, a lizard on a window pane, a Lonely Hearts Club poster, and many, many more allusions to the Beatles. Having to obtain the final approval of the three surviving Beatles, plus Yoko Ono, meant that the video was only finally delivered within a few hours of its global premiere. At a time when video file sharing did not exist, at least commercially, and with George globe-trotting with the Formula One circus, the rushes ended up being sent to Australia, then Brazil, and finally Morocco for his approval. Later, when George saw his final part of the budget, the ever cost-conscious ex-Beatle commented that he would rather have had a McLaren sports car.
You are a big friend of Damon's, George, and you just came in to lend some moral support.
Yeah, well, I've come to the Adelaide Grand Prix a number of times in the past, and I like it down here. It's kind of friendly, and it is the last race of the year, so everybody's in a more light-hearted mood.
In the end, the Threetles' input was minimal. Paul's only request was to remove a girl exiting from the bakery. George's was for a sitar, and Ringo wanted an elephant added. George had also wanted to play the part of George Formby, who appears in the coda playing the ukulele, a part played by George on the actual recording. Sadly, this was vetoed, as the treatment only allowed for 60s images rather than current day ones to be used. One actress who did actually feature, later to become famous to British soap fans, was Kate Ford, who played the role of evil-hearted temptress Tracy Barlow in the world's longest-running TV soap, Coronation Street. Sadly, the other actors are uncredited. To my mind, the guy who plays the role of the paperback writer bears a similarity to Elvis Costello. If you appeared in the video or know someone who was, please leave a comment below. Frustratingly, the impact of the premiere was diminished by the airing of a sensational BBC interview with Princess Diana, which outlined her extramarital affair, self-harming, bulimia, and the future King Charles's relationship with one Camilla Parker Bowles. With the video now upscaled to glorious 4K, we can spend countless hours chasing Easter eggs and spotting even more Beatles references.